I found my body and the creature entangled as I tried to use all the brute force I could muster to defeat this monster. He soon had me in a bear hug, and my body, like putty, seemed to deflate. I had not much time to live. My lungs would pop and I would be dead. I launched my teeth straight into his hairy chest, and he squealed like a little dog. As his grip was gone, I shot under his legs and up to meet the creature that had the boy in his grip. I launched a surprise punch at the tramp. It felt as if I'd hit a brick wall. The blood of my hand on hitting him splattered on the nearby wall, and I took hold of the boy and pulled him towards me. I roared at the creature almost instinctively, and it wasn't until after the machine gun men who had saved us before came and finished these monsters off that I realized in that moment I had become like one of these creatures. In order to defeat it, or was it more than that? Was it that inside us all was this evil creature? Just these creatures were consumed by it, and I controlled it until I needed to unleash it to save the boy. But I had made my promise true. "It's you," said one of the men with a machine gun. "Sorry?" I said, bemused of his words and situation. "You don't remember me? You wouldn't. The Premier." "You," I said angrily, fully remembering them, the 4 men who had brutally killed the Premier and later launched a missile at the hotel I was staying in, nearly killing me. "You nearly killed me." "We were saving your life." "I don't mean now, I mean in that hotel. It was you in that tank, wasn't it?" "Oops," he said, almost joyfully, in a very remissive tone. "Oops." "You were in that building?" "Yes," I said, slowly emphasizing all the sounds. "Sorry, we thought it was empty. It was the Premier's. Whilst we lived in poverty, he bleated about more taxes for this and that. He had his pa and lived like a king. Once he was dead, all his memory had to be eradicated." I didn't bother to listen to any more. The night we all sat around a long table, and with candles as the power was destroyed in the battle, we had a final dinner at St. Mary's Hospital. The boy and I left the following morning, leaving the 4 men and a few extras that they had obtained to stay there as security and protect the doctors and patients as they carried on selfishly saving people's lives. I shook the doctor's hand and offered to take him, as he couldn't drive, to find his wife and family, but he said he had to stay and help set the hospital up first. So we both parted, first by foot, until we purchased another car. As we drove in the car down a familiar road, it began to snow. It was an amazing sight to see the white particles from high above drop so gracefully, unlike their cousins, rain. And on the ground came their pattern until a carpet was made. But strangely it made the landscape even more bleak than it had appeared before. All that untouched snow that would remain like that till it turned to ice, then sleet, and disappeared as if it had never come. We drove past the bridge, and there I saw my bus covered in snow. We swapped over and drove across the bridge. The boy wiped the dirt from one of the windows and looked at the now frozen water below. We drove into the centre, snow covering surfaces. Even the bodies of the fallen comrades lay under snow, buildings with large holes gaping in them, sprinkled with snow. I stopped the white-coated double-decker, as the boy wanted to play out in the snow. And after all he had been through, he deserved it, and much more than that, so did I. We made snowballs and threw them at each other. We fell on the ground, picked each other up, and the hours went by as if they were days. We ended up putting the finishing touches to a snowman as the sun began to descend for another day. We both lay the snow on the snowman's side, building him up, when from behind us a shadow was cast. We turned around, fearing the worst, and maybe for me it was, for it was the child's father. The boy jumped into his father's outstretched arms and began laughing. Their happiness was most obvious, and in that moment, unlike the one before, it was as if the boy had forgotten I had even existed. I wondered to myself in sad reflection what role I had played for the boy. Whether he cared at all for me, he certainly didn't, now knowing his father had come. But I could not blame him, for as much as I had enjoyed being the father to this boy, however short, It was not my job. It was already taken. Eventually the father came to me and hugged me, thanking me for looking after the boy. He told me he had managed to escape from his captors when they got ill and died. The boy stood close to his father at his feet. The boy smiled at me, but it was not in the same way as it was before. The father told the boy to say thank you to me. "Thanks, mister," he said. The father picked up his child and they walked off, throwing balls of snow at each other, laughing. I watched every minute as they walked away, and only their footsteps in the snow remained. The boy never looked back, not even to wave goodbye. My heart felt heavy. I had always wanted a son, but could never have one. And the time we had spent felt so special to me, but for him I was an artificial replacement, and now that his father's back, my time was at an end. The darkness descended. I got back in the bus and slumped on the wheel and fell to sleep. In the morning I drove the bus through the blizzard snow back to the hospital and persuaded the doctor, who I found out from his pass on his coat was Dr. Jamie Lance. We got in the bus and I drove him with the help of directions to his family house. When we got there, it was noticeable from the front, which was battered, that something terrible had happened there. We went in, full of trepidation. It was silent and empty. The doctor looked at the items on the mantelpiece. It was a mural of photographs of the loved ones he had left behind, those that he had to sacrifice while he made the sick better. How selfless was this man! I felt in my heart a great sadness, for there were not many I had known in my short life who would do so much for others even against their own needs. I was just about to put my hand on his shoulder to console him, when from what must have been the basement area came a crowd of people. They were strangers to me, but to him they were his family. His wife, parents, children, all of them living in the basement. During a spot of tea they explained that the creatures which we knew were those zombified tramps had caught at the house, and they had hidden down below while they trashed the house. I looked at the doctor's face, which now looked tranquil. I left him with his family and was back on my bus on my way. After that day I drove on the road for a few days as far as I could. I passed a sign saying a city was a mile up the road. I took the slip road when it came, and into the city I went. I, accustomed to not looking really where I was going, stopped the bus, crashing it into a post. I opened the doors to go out and fix it. As I did, two ladies pushed past a crowd of people, swiped their passes on the bus ticket meter, and went and sat in the seats. I opened my eyes to the world I had found myself in. There was a crowd of people waiting at a bus stop, which I had crashed into. A man entered the bus and told me my sign was wrong on the front of the bus, and asked me whether I was the E5 or 92 service, which meant nothing to me, and I told him, "Sorry, I can't drive actually." Had I really found somewhere which had been unaffected by the fog?